Hi, we're going to talk about clogged drains and some very simple ways to unclog your drains safely. I've put together the things that I always use when I've got a clogged drain. So either bicarbonate of soda and baking soda and vinegar, and then kettle to represent hot water. I also put in the plunger just in case if the first one doesn't work. My go-to is always vinegar and baking soda, but if you use a plunger, there are things that I'm going to tell you not to do, and a couple tips also. And then the last thing is the food bucket. If you have a food bucket, this is your sustainability advertisement. Food buckets we have at many communities in the UK. I don't know about your community. If you've got one, I implore you to use it, and I'll tell you quickly why. Any food that gets in our landfill ends up producing methane gas, or methane gas, as we say in the UK. Methane gas is 25 times more, adds more, 25%, 25 times more heat to the atmosphere. It's awful. It is awful. So anything you can do to avoid getting food into the landfill is like the best thing possible. And avoid getting it into your drain, because that helps you avoid clogs as well. So the food bucket is first port of call for food. Now, if you get a clog, there are as I said, very simple things to do. So first, with my kettle, heat it up as hot as you can on the stove, wherever. You're first going to want to pour water down your drain. A lot of water, a lot of boiling hot water. Then you want it to sit for the next 5, maybe even 10 minutes. Sometimes this is enough to unclog your drain. It dissolves the fat and the grease. Another thing that should never go down your drain, fat, grease, and coffee grounds. They should always go in your food bucket. They are the worst at grease in particular. What it does is it starts catching things against it, and then more stuff builds on and on and on. Like coffee grounds, they're sharp and angular, and they just kind of fit into the little grooves and crannies, nicks and crannies, and just build a big clog up. So anyway, hot water might dissolve it, might clear that out all by itself. But you start with hot water. If that hasn't, closed out the drain, cleared out the drain, then you take your bicarbonate of soda or your baking soda. Okay, so what you do, either like a quarter cup, third of a cup, and make sure you get it all down into the drain. You don't want it sitting on top, because what happens, you want all the reaction between the baking soda and the vinegar to happen down in the drain, so they can then force the water or clog on through. Now, before you add the vinegar, you might need a second person to help you with this, because you're going to want someone to be holding that overflow drain right there, covered up with a cloth. And if you have a double sink, you're going to have to cover the other drain and the other overflow, because what happens is, as the baking soda reacts with the vinegar, it expands. And when it expands, you want it to go down the drain. You don't want it to come back out and up out of your sink. That way it's done nothing. Okay, so next, we're just going to pretend I've got a hand over that other drain. So you're going to pour a quarter cup of vinegar down, and you'll see it. Here it comes. And then you want to push that in there. And you can hear it. It reacts and reacts for a couple minutes. And then once it sounds like it's stopped, then you'll pull your hand away. Now, this could have been enough to do it. So you want to you could check at that point. But what I recommend doing is boiling another kettle of very hot water and pouring that down again like you did at the start. I can still hear it going. Okay, now, if that does not do it, the last choice in my book is using the plunger. Now, the problem with using a plunger is sometimes it's great. It'll force the clog, but also, depending on your pipes, it could cause your pipes to break and make them leak. So when you do plunge, you want it to be firm, but not too hard. So just like an action that kind of does a gentle pumping like that. One thing I didn't say, before you start with your plunger, you want to fill the sink with water, or fill the drain with water. Because if it's not draining, then water's going to fill there, because you want to have a nice seal between the water and the plunger to make it work its best. Okay? So last but not least, of course, as we talked about with the bottle trap, you may find that you've got to, whatever drain it is, go in and open up the drain and snake out whatever is clogging it. Hopefully it's very near to where you're working and not beneath the house. You don't want to have to call out the specialist to clear your drains. So anyway, the best way to avoid this is, first, don't put any food, grease, or anything like that down your drain. Just don't do it. It's a recipe for disaster. And maybe it won't happen this week, this month, the 6 months or year, but it builds up over time, and then you will have a problem, and you'll be really sorry that you didn't avoid it. Anyway, I hope these little tips work for you. And if you have questions, or if you want to have me on board as you're trying to do it at home, we can do a Zoom call and a quick consultation. Thanks for joining me. It's Betsy from Betsy's Plumbing, and bye for now.